let's look at the adding on row click functionality. What we're talking about is when we click the row click here, we're again referring to that we're going to tell the system we're going to do a row click. It's going to automatically set this script for us that I've coded for you. And then we need to make that choice of, do we want the entire row or a specific value returned? And when we do that, if we choose specific value, then we have to pick a field from the context above. So then that does become important. But you can always just free hand type this in. I just built the drop downs to assist you. Let's quick look at the code though, and what's actually happening when we click that. So when I have the code build it for you and put it into the integration settings, the difference between returning the entire row and returning a specific value is really quite just one line. And I wanted to point it out to you so that you can start to understand how you can control what you're passing back to the script in order to have it execute the way you want it to. So same template here is that they're all identical at the top, but once we're starting to construct the object that we're going to pass as a parameter back to this FileMaker script, we just basically tell it we're sending something different, right? So on this first one, once you start to understand how this construction works, we're telling it when we click the button or click the row, I'm sorry, we are going to return the entire row of data as an object back to FileMaker. When we tell it that we want to specify a specific value, we are actually just changing that code and saying, when I click that row, what field name and field value did you want me to know about? And so most cases where this would be in a good example is with like a primary key. We may not want all of the data for the record. We may just want to say, hey, they just clicked this primary ID, and so then I'm going to take action with that. So let's go into the demo file and take a peek at how those two things work and what they return for values. We're in the demo file 4.2, adding an on row click. Let's hit quick start. All right, we have all of our databases in here again. Let's go down to the bottom where we had our last file, and let's do our normal procedure of duplicating the record. Okay, we're going to change this to 4.2. And we are going to say adding a row on click. Everything else can stay the same, and we'll submit and close that. And let's, for purposes of being able to see it, let's just do 4 here, and we'll get to this row. All right, let's go into the integration settings tab, and we're gonna remove the integration from last time so we can start fresh. All right, submit and close that. There's no integrations happening, nothing happening here. On the integrations tab, again, let's do our on row click for this lesson. When we fill that in, again, it starts right now at telling us that we're doing some kind of row. And by default, I've got the code when you check that button to say we're going to do the row click. So we can look at that script, but we'll see that in a minute. And by default, it's picking context because we had that still in our settings. If you wanted to change that to something else, we certainly can. We'll show you that example in a little bit. But now we have the choice. Do we want to return the entire row or the specific value? So for this particular case, let's just do entire row. And there's no more questions to answer. There's no more orange. And you can see behind that it actually populated some code. So we're going to hit submit and close on this. And we can see everything's here. Let's go to the preview tab, and nothing looks different. But as soon as we click on any row, we are actually executing a FileMaker script. And in that script, I'm returning the entire set of information there. So let's just go peek at my script. And let's look here for row click. And all we're doing is getting the parameter that was passed on the event that was clicked. And then I'm just formatting it and showing it to you in a custom development. So this is only done for illustration purposes. What you need to do when you actually have your script is you could do something similar for this, but then have it branch off and say, okay, I've gotten this, this, and this, and I'm going to go take this action. I'm really just trying to show you in this point right now, as part of the lessons, what you actually get to see. So let's choose a different row, this one with 201 Hawk Court. When I choose that, I can see 201 Hawk Court in the address. So we're getting I'm passing back the report name, the row data, and the table name context. Well, let's go look at that quick. In my integration, what I'm saying here is, okay, when I click the table row, I'm getting the database's row that I clicked, and then I'm getting the data from that row. And then from that, I'm constructing what I'm calling my variable of a JSON object. So I'm setting the row data, and report name and table name are things that I added to help me assist with what report was clicked or what was happening there. And then finally, at the end, I'm constructing another parameter, and I'm telling the JavaScript code to stringify what I just constructed. So it's like a way to be able to say, hey, you're talking in this language, I've got to clean it up and send it to someone else. And then you guys should recognize this, but we're saying FileMaker.perform script, which is a JavaScript code that we can write in FileMaker to say, perform this script name and pass it this parameter that I just set here. So we all along, we kind of constructed what we were building. And so in this case, we're throwing three objects at it: row data, which is an object of the data, the report name, and the table name. So let's go look at that again. When I click something, row data, report name, and table name are there. So that's how you can control what you're saying and passing through. Now let's go see the other option that we have for row clicks. But first, let's get some naming conventions changed here. Let's make sure that on this on row click, we're telling ourselves that we are doing the example for the entire row. And then we've got that renamed. And now let's duplicate this code, this record here. And let's do 4.2 and get that named right. And then this example, we're going to do a specific value. And if I can type as our example. And we're still dealing with data from the context table, and everything else can stay the same. Right now, if we go back to 4.2 and we look at the preview, what we have is this clicks and we get the row. The duplicate that we just did, same thing happens, we're getting that. What we want to do now is go into this integration and toggle that setting to be the specific value. So when we do this, we get prompted to say, well, what is it that you actually want to return? And so because I've got this code set up right now that I'm telling it, hey, I am from the contacts table, it's looking at all the fields that are in that table to choose from. So for or actually what it's doing is it's not looking at all the fields, it's looking at all the data in the data's column. So these are the fields that we've already went through and said, hey, name these that. So we can pick any one of these. So for the point of illustration, I'm going to just choose the ID field because that's typically what you're going to pick. So when I say, hey, the ID field is what I want to return, we submit and close that. Come back to you can click on any row spot, doesn't matter. So we're going to click this Michigan State area here. And what it's returning now is that specific field and its value. And then again, the report name and table name that I've constructed. So let's go look at that. Again, we are collecting the table name and report name. And then we're saying, what was the name of the primary ID field? And then, or what was the field from the data that we chose? And then what was its value? So let's go show you the example of that. If I change this ID to say email, now what I expect is instead of the word ID and its primary key, I expect to see the word email and the email address. So let's do that. You can see that this code hasn't changed, but now over here, we're saying, show me the word email and the word, the actual email. And when I do that, and I click, let's say Michigan here, I am now getting that field and that. So this just proves to you that the kind of control you have on a row click could be specific to the value that you want to return or the entire set of data so that you can make decisions from that.